Hi, welcome to Safe Relationships with Brenda Barros Rivera. In this channel, I devote myself to really talking about all things about safe relationships, and I talk about how we can identify safe people and how we can build safety within ourselves and learn how to set boundaries so that we can have protection and so that we can thrive. So if you like this kind of topic, if you want to learn how to set boundaries in your life, how to identify safe people, make sure that you hit the subscribe button below and make sure that you click on the little bell up on the right corner so that you can get notified whenever I post new videos. This video is going to focus specifically on how we handle people who are covertly or overtly aggressive in their interactions with us and how we can set boundaries to protect ourselves with those kinds of people. So first of all, people who are covertly or overtly aggressive tend to let that spill over into their relationships. And what ends up happening is that relationships become a place where people combat for power. So interactions that we might have are not really going to be about nurturing and support and communication. For people who are really aggressive and in their relationships, they actually view the relationship and any interaction as a boxing match where someone has to win and somebody has to lose. And unfortunately, of course, they have to win. So if you're the one who is with somebody who's like that, it's very difficult to have interactions because you can't really connect with them as if you were with somebody who is more about nurturing and having a relationship for the sake of support and interaction. And now, how do you know who you're dealing with? Well, one of the things that you're going to notice with people who are overtly or covertly aggressive and they bring that into the relationship is that none of the issues that they bring up are really going to be resolved. You're going to be going in this circle around either the same thing or a lot of similar things, and things will never really change and get resolved. So the reason that this happens, though, is because people who are overtly or covertly aggressive, they enjoy control. They're about control and power. So interactions they have with you are not about resolving an issue. They're about having control and power over you. And so once you realize that's what's happening, it's better to not engage with them in the way you would engage with somebody who's actually safe, who's actually trying to resolve a situation with you. So for instance, if you have somebody who's actually safe and they bring a point, they say, you know what, I didn't like this, I felt hurt by this, then you say, oh, let me talk about this, let me address this. And now you have a resolution. With somebody who's covertly or overtly aggressive, who brings something up in a relationship, they might say something like, I didn't like it. And if you say, oh, well, I'm sorry, you know, I think I might do this and this and this or something else, then they'll be like, well, no, and here's what really happened. And so they want to like pile on the blame and the attack. And you end up walking away feeling kind of defeated often in these interactions because you don't actually get anything resolved, and instead you walk away feeling very blamed and hurt often. So you want to look for those patterns. You know, anyone can have a one-off day, or sometimes people legitimately think that they're right about a particular issue. But with people who have this as their way of being, as their character, you're going to see any interaction where there's disagreement, they're going to treat it as a battlefield where one person has to win and one person has to lose. Now, there are two tactics that I want to talk to you about specifically, and then I want to give you a hint on how you can address them. So one tactic that people who are aggressive tend to use in order to win the fight is that they throw an accusation at you that might be outlandish, and you get so shocked by it that you start trying to defend yourself and explain what's happening. And see, that's the thing. The minute you start explaining and defending yourself, now they got you on the ropes where they want you. They want you fighting back, getting tired, overwhelmed, and feeling off-centered, because that's what gives them the feeling of control. So when they start, and the way that you'll notice in the conversation is that they'll start out with one accusation or complaint. You never do X, Y, or Z. Then when you try to explain why that isn't the case or how this was a one-off thing, then they'll make something about what you just finished saying to explain yourself, you know? So if you say something like, they tell you, hey, you didn't make dinner like I asked you to. And you say, oh, I'm so sorry. The problem is that my sister called me and told me that she was sick and I had to go help her. Then this person will say, oh, see, why does your sister always have to call you when she's sick? Why doesn't she call somebody else? And they say, oh, because this happened. Oh, because, and it doesn't matter what you say, they're going to find something to attack about that. And at the end of the day, there's nothing you can say to actually make it go away. So it's almost like the more you talk, the more ammunition you give them to use against you. So it's just better to not engage in that way. So what I do when I notice people doing this, especially once I know it's their pattern, but if in one conversation I see it happening more than once or twice, then I'll say, oh, hold on, okay? We're jumping from issue to issue to issue, and I'm only going to address this original issue that you talked about first. That's the only thing I'm going to talk about. That is the only way you're able to disengage from these kind of people, because they're using the conversation as a power struggle. They're not using it from a place of actually trying to gain understanding. So you have to disengage and call it out. And the second thing that people who are overtly or covertly aggressive like to do is that they like to tell you what your intentions are, even if there is no evidence to support them. So for instance, if they say something like, hey, you didn't come and meet me at the time we were supposed to meet. And then you say, you know what, I'm so sorry, something came up this time. And then they'll say, no, this is proof that you don't respect me. Whoa, that's a pretty big statement, especially if it's not a perpetual pattern that you're doing. It's a one-off thing. They'll hone in on it, and then they'll tell you, extrapolate your whole character and tell you what all it means about you, what your intentions are, who you are from that one incident. When you see that, you know that there is no desire to resolve the situation in a way that gives you a fair chance to explain. In other words, you're not at this level, right? It's not two people coming together to meet who are at the same level of power trying to resolve something. It's somebody who's trying to get a one-up on the other person, okay? When you have that occur, it can be you might feel compelled to also defend yourself and try to explain and blah, blah, blah. The thing is, you should not have to be proving to anybody what your intentions are, because the truth is, no one can tell you what your intentions are except for you, especially in an interpersonal relationship. There are other contexts where other people decide that. So for instance, we see this in court, where one person, like especially when there's voluntary, like involuntary manslaughter, the judge or the jury have to decide if it, which one it is. In a relationship though, that's not how it's supposed to be. If it's based on trust, if it's egalitarian, then I should believe what my partner's telling me his or her intentions are, and vice versa. But in relationships in which people are trying to manipulate and have power over someone else, they're going to use this tactic a lot to make the other person get off their center. So how can you handle this? If somebody comes at you and tells you, no, this is what you did and here is why you did it. Well, what you can say is, wait, I'm the only one who knows what my intentions are. I can appreciate and understand that you didn't like it, and I'm willing to address that and talk about it and make amends if necessary, but I'm the only one who knows what my intentions are, so I would appreciate if you would stop trying to make those assumptions. And if it goes too far, with some people, I actually even have playfully said, oh, you can read minds now? Wow, I had no idea. Kind of using a fake, a little bit of sarcasm, but not in a mean way. And that sometimes helps them snap out of it and realize, this is true. Why am I trying to assume I understand what she's thinking? And if that doesn't work, using a fun approach or using a more stern approach, then you really cannot engage with that person. What are you going to do talking to somebody who is trying to place their reality onto you, who's using projection to put their reality on you? I posted a really cute post. There's a graphic of a little rhinoceros. I'm going to put it up here, that shows it making paintings. And every single one of the paintings has a little horn. So it looks like the landscape, all of the landscapes have like a little horn in them. But really it's because the rhino has a horn in its face. So as it's painting both its horn and reality. That's called projection. And this is what happens when we have people who are trying to project onto us either their intentions or they're using this as a tactic to unsettle us. So we don't have to accept it. This is where good, strong mental boundaries come in as well. Just because somebody said something about us doesn't make it true. They don't get to define our reality. So knowing these tactics of people who are covertly or overtly aggressive will really help us conserve our energy so that we can use the great relational skills that we learned. We get to use them, but with people who are safe. Otherwise, we're spinning our wheels and wasting our energy with people who are not trying to relate to us as equal relational partners. They're trying to relate to us from a position of power. And if that is not the kind of relation we want to have, and if that's not how we relate, then either we need to decide whether we need to leave the relationship or whether we need to stay but engage in a way that helps us preserve ourselves.